There's a quiet lie at the center of modern retirement advice. It doesn't scream. It sounds responsible, even helpful. And the lie is simple. If you haven't reached some giant number by now, you must be in trouble. But that lie is powerful because it slips into your thinking. It creeps in when you open a statement. It nudges you when someone says $1 million is the minimum. Before long, you stop asking whether your retirement can work. You only ask whether your number looks impressive. Now listen, these 5 types of retirees are often richer than they think, not because they are hiding piles of money, but because they are measuring the wrong thing. The real question isn't how big your savings account looks. It's how much dependable life your money and income can actually buy you every month. Think of Social Security like the foundation of a house, strong, underground, invisible, but holding everything up. Your savings are more like furniture. Important, yes. But if the couch is beautiful and the floor is cracked, you still have a problem. That's why some people with modest savings sleep well, while others with big accounts still lie awake. One has a strong floor. The other has expensive furniture on shaky ground. Let that sink in, because it changes how you see retirement. Before we continue, if you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, this would be a really good time to do it. The first type of retiree who is often richer than they think is the person with steady guaranteed income. Maybe it comes from Social Security, maybe from a pension, maybe from a small annuity, which is just regular income on schedule. The power is not in the label. The power is in the reliability. Think about a paycheck. While you were working, you did not wake up wondering if direct deposit would vanish because the market had a bad Tuesday. You counted on it. In retirement, guaranteed income creates that same quiet stability, and people often underestimate how valuable that feels. I know 2 people like this. One is Karen. She is 67, a retired nurse in a paid-off brick house outside Columbus. She has about $185,000 saved. Nothing flashy, but she also has Social Security and a small hospital pension after 31 years of work. Then there is Linda. She is 65, a former marketing manager in a stylish city apartment. She has $910,000 in retirement accounts. On paper, she looks like the winner. But Linda is anxious almost every day because most of her retirement depends on withdrawals from investments that rise and fall. Karen knows roughly what is coming in each month. Linda knows what her balance was this morning. Those are not the same kind of knowledge. One creates calm, the other creates constant monitoring. Karen may look behind by saving standards, but in daily life, she often feels more secure. A monthly pension is not just money. It is money you do not have to babysit. Social Security is not just a government program. It is part of your income floor. When your basic bills are covered by income that keeps showing up, your savings are no longer the only thing between you and stress. Let me ask you something. Do you know what your monthly income will actually look like when you retire? Be honest with yourself. Imagine your retirement in 2 piles. Pile 1 is income that shows up no matter what. Pile 2 is savings you must manage and hope will last. Most people stare at pile 2 because it feels dramatic. But pile 1 is the quiet hero. It pays the electric bill, keeps the fridge running, and buys the essential parts of life. And when pile 1 is strong enough, something surprising happens. You stop treating every market swing like an emergency. You stop seeing retirement as one long math problem. You start living inside it. That is why dependable income can make an ordinary balance feel much stronger. The second type of retiree who is richer than they think is the person with a paid-off home and low fixed expenses. I'm not saying homeownership solves everything. Roofs leak, taxes show up, insurance rises. But a paid-off home quietly lowers the income you need every month. Think of inflation like an ice cube in the sun. It does not melt all at once. It slowly shrinks while you are busy doing something else. That is what rising costs do in retirement. They erode buying power over time, and the less debt you carry, the less exposed you are. A retiree with modest savings and no mortgage can be better off than a retiree with large investments and big monthly obligations. Why? Because retirement is not a contest over assets. It is a monthly cash flow experience. It is bills, groceries, prescriptions, taxes, and a little room to breathe. The real question isn't how much money you have stacked in total. It's how much of your life costs you each month and how predictably you can cover it. I've seen this over and over. One person has a beautiful balance, but also debt, payments, and a lifestyle built around spending. Another has far less saved, but lives simply, owns their home, and needs less to feel content. Guess who often feels more free? Freedom is expensive when your lifestyle demands it. Freedom is cheaper when your life is built around enough. That word matters. Enough. Not perfect, not flashy, enough. Many retirees underestimate how much peace comes from lowering monthly pressure instead of always chasing a bigger pile. That's why some people are richer than they think the moment they stop comparing themselves to somebody with a bigger number and start looking at what their own life actually costs. Stop measuring yourself against everyone else. Start focusing on what truly gives you freedom. The third type of retiree who is richer than they think is the person who delayed Social Security longer than they realize the value of. Many people see this as a simple age choice, 62, 67, or 70, but it is really about buying more guaranteed income for life. Think of your benefit like a faucet. Behind that faucet is a pipe you have been filling your whole working life. Every paycheck and payroll tax built pressure in that pipe. When you turn the faucet on, the age you choose affects how much water comes out each month for life. If you claim at 62, the water starts sooner, but the monthly flow is smaller. If you wait until full retirement age, often around 67, the flow gets bigger. If you wait until 70, it grows more. You are not getting free money. You are changing your lifetime income. And if you wait too long to turn it on, some of that water never reaches you. It stays in the pipe, unused, gone. No refunds, no second chances. That is why this is not a one-size-fits-all decision. It should match your health, your spouse, your income needs, and your life expectancy. Some people delay and quietly create one of the strongest income streams they will ever own. That matters because Social Security has COLA adjustments, cost of living increases that can help your check rise over time. In a world where prices creep higher year after year, that kind of income is more valuable than many people realize. Let that sink in. A bigger Social Security check is not just a bigger check today. It can be a stronger base for the next 20 or 30 years, especially for the spouse who may outlive the other. Survivor planning is not romantic. It is practical love. Here's a question. If you had to choose between more money or more certainty, which would it be? Keep that in your head as we go. If you are married, the timing decision is even more important. When one spouse dies, one Social Security check usually goes away, and the surviving spouse keeps the larger benefit. That means the higher earner's claiming choice can shape the survivor's financial life for years, quietly, permanently. That is a very big decision. So yes, the person who delayed wisely may be richer than they think. Not because they won a game, but because they bought more lifelong income, more inflation resistance, and sometimes more protection for the person they love most. The fourth type of retiree who is richer than they think is the person with a pension they undervalue. This happens all the time. People talk about a pension like it is just one modest monthly amount, but a pension can represent an asset value that would take a very large investment account to replace. Imagine walking onto a car lot. Every vehicle has a sticker price. It looks final. But nobody buys without asking what the real value is. A pension works in reverse. People see the monthly amount, but they do not ask what lump sum would be needed to buy that same income privately. Say your pension pays $1,800 a month for life. That is $21,600 a year. To create that kind of dependable income from savings, you might need several $100,000, sometimes much more. Yet many retirees shrug and say it is just a small pension. No, it may be a hidden giant. And if that pension includes survivor benefits for a spouse or some inflation protection, its real value climbs even more. Here's the thing. You may already have what people with millions are searching for. This is where perceived data and real data pull apart. Perceived data says, my account balance is not impressive, so I'm behind. Real data says, I have several income streams, some guaranteed, and my basic life may already be funded better than I thought. I am not saying every pension is huge or perfect. Some are small, some do not adjust for inflation, some come with hard survivor choices. But even then, a pension deserves respect. It is part of your floor. It reduces how much pressure your savings have to carry, and that pressure matters. Because the moment your savings have to do less heavy lifting, your retirement plan often becomes stronger than it looks. That is why the retiree with an undervalued pension is often richer than they think. Let me ask you, have you ever calculated what your pension is actually worth in real dollars? Most people never do. The fifth type of retiree who is richer than they think is the person who understands how flexible spending can protect them, even if their savings are not massive. Many people assume retirement success means drawing the same amount every month forever, but real life is more human than that. Some years cost more, some cost less, some wants can wait. Think of financial stress like an invisible backpack. You carry it so long that you stop noticing how heavy it is until somebody removes a few bricks. Flexibility removes bricks. If you can trim optional spending when markets are down without harming your happiness, you are stronger than the rigid retiree with the bigger account. That matters because of something called sequence of returns risk. Put simply, it is the danger of getting poor market returns early in retirement while also taking money out. Bad timing can hurt more than bad averages. Two retirees can earn the same long-term return, but the one hit early may struggle sooner. Now the analogy. Imagine planting a young tree and then cutting branches off it during the first dry summer. That tree is vulnerable. It has not had time to strengthen. Early retirement withdrawals during a down market can feel like that. You are pulling from the portfolio when it is least ready, but a retiree with flexible spending can protect the tree. They can pause the extra withdrawals. They can live more from guaranteed income for a while. They can reduce pressure during bad years. Quietly, that flexibility becomes a financial asset all by itself. So when someone tells you they only have a certain amount saved, do not rush to judge the number. Ask whether they can adapt. Ask whether they have strong income. Ask whether their home is paid off. Ask whether a pension is doing more work than anyone notices. That is where the real strength often hides. Here's something to think about. If you found out today that you're actually on track, how would that change your week? Now, there is another kind of retiree who often feels poorer than they are. It is the person who keeps chasing the big number myth. The myth says there is one magic total, one clean answer, $1 million, 2 million, maybe more. But that number alone tells you almost nothing about how retirement will actually feel. Think of two kitchens. One has shelves packed with groceries but no working stove. The other has fewer groceries, but the stove and fridge work, and meals keep getting made. Which kitchen is more useful? Savings without a strong income plan can look full but function poorly. The real question isn't what number sounds impressive at a backyard barbecue. It's what combination of income, expenses, flexibility, and protection creates a life you can actually sustain. This matters because people often underestimate some expenses and overestimate others. They picture endless travel and restaurant meals. Then life happens. Healthcare takes more. Home maintenance rises. Family needs appear. Insurance creeps. Groceries quietly cost more. Inflation rarely feels dramatic until you total a year. At the same time, some costs do go down. Commuting fades. Work clothes matter less. Payroll taxes disappear. Maybe you cook more. Maybe you discover that your ideal retirement day is not expensive at all. Coffee on the porch, a walk, lunch with a friend, time with a grandchild, a quiet afternoon without rushing anywhere. That is why real data beats perceived data. Your retirement is not somebody else's spreadsheet fantasy. It is your life. Your bills, your rhythms, your preferences. You don't need perfection to have a successful retirement. You need clarity. Clarity starts by replacing one giant scary question with a few honest, smaller ones. What does my life actually cost? What income is guaranteed? Which costs are flexible? What happens if markets drop early? What happens if one spouse dies first? Those questions are far more useful. Let me tell you about another contrast. Tom is 70, a retired factory worker in a modest ranch home. He and his wife live on Social Security, a union pension, and about $128,000 in savings. Their home is paid off. They drive one older car. Tom checks his accounts, but he does not obsess over them. Steve is 62, a former accountant with $1.3 million saved. He lives in a larger house with a mortgage and expects retirement to feel like a permanent upgrade. He is smart and disciplined, but almost every decision makes him uneasy. He worries about taxes, market swings, health costs, inflation, and bad timing. Tom looks poorer to the outside world. Steve looks richer, but Tom's life is supported by a stronger income floor relative to his needs. Steve's life demands more from his assets every month. One man feels quiet confidence. The other feels silent pressure. This is why appearances mislead so many people. It's not about who has more saved, it's about who has more certainty. Here's something else that makes retirees feel richer. Many undervalue peace of mind. A plan that lets you sleep, spend modestly, and stop checking the market has real value. Stress changes behavior, and bad behavior damages good plans. Think about a safety net. You do not stare at it while walking the high wire, but you move differently because it is there. Social Security works like that for many retirees. A pension works like that. A paid-off home works like that. Low expenses work like that. Flexibility works like that. Each one quietly changes how you respond under pressure, and response matters. Markets do not only test your money, they test your emotions. A person with no safety net may panic or freeze. A person with a strong floor can wait, adjust, and avoid turning a temporary drop into permanent damage. Quick question. Have you ever felt guilty about spending money in retirement? A lot of retirees do. They save for decades, then struggle to use the money for the life it was meant to support. Part of that guilt comes from uncertainty. If you are not sure what is safe to spend, every dinner out can feel reckless. Every trip can feel selfish. Every home repair can feel like the beginning of the end. But when you understand your income floor, your flexible spending, and your true monthly needs, spending becomes less emotional and more intentional. You stop guessing. You stop swinging between fear and denial. You make choices from a place of clarity instead of panic. This is also where spouse planning matters more than most couples expect. So many couples think in terms of today's combined income and forget to ask what changes later. One check may disappear. Household expenses may not drop as much as expected. The surviving spouse may face higher tax pressure, more healthcare costs, or simply more financial complexity at a painful time. Now listen carefully. Survivor planning is not about preparing for tragedy in some abstract way. It is about reducing chaos in a very real future that one of you will probably live through. That means looking at pensions, beneficiary choices, claiming strategies, insurance, and what the remaining person would actually need to keep living with dignity. The retiree who has already thought about that is often richer than they think because they have created protection that does not show up in a simple net worth number. Again, the real question isn't what number makes you look successful. It's what plan keeps your life stable when life stops being easy. And let's talk honestly about inflation for a moment. Inflation is sneaky. It rarely knocks on the door and announces itself. It quietly nudges your grocery bill, your Medicare costs, your property taxes, your restaurant prices, your home repairs. 1 month feels manageable, then 5 years pass, and the same lifestyle costs much more. That is why income with built-in adjustments matters. That is why flexibility matters. That is why a paid-off home matters. That is why pretending your current budget will stay frozen forever can be dangerous. Underestimating expenses is not a character flaw. It is a common human habit. But in retirement, small misses repeated over time can quietly become big problems. Here's something most people never consider. Do you know the difference between what you need and what you want in retirement? That difference is everything. Needs are the engine. Wants are the scenery. Both matter, but they do not matter equally when pressure rises. A retiree who knows the difference can adapt without feeling deprived. A retiree who never separated the two may feel every adjustment as a crisis. And that brings us back to why these 5 types of retirees are often richer than they think. They may not have dazzling balances, but they have some combination of guaranteed income, low fixed costs, delayed benefits, undervalued pensions, flexible spending, or thoughtful survivor protection. In other words, they have structure, and structure quietly creates resilience. You may be waiting for someone to tell you whether your number is enough. I get that. It would feel amazing to hear a simple yes or no, but retirement rarely works that way. Enough is not one universal target. Enough is personal. It depends on your life, your costs, your health, your relationships, your location, and your willingness to adapt. That is why broad statistics can help and mislead at the same time. Yes, many retirees do not have enormous savings. That part is true. Yet many also report feeling reasonably satisfied. Why? Because satisfaction is not built from balance alone. It is built from whether income covers life with enough room for peace. Numbers matter, but how you feel about those numbers, that matters just as much. So if you have been measuring yourself only by the size of your portfolio, I want to gently challenge you. That is incomplete math. Important math, yes, but incomplete. A retirement plan is not a trophy case. It is a system, and systems should be measured by how well they function, not just how impressive one piece looks. Let me ask you this. If you could go back 10 years, what would you do differently with your retirement planning? Most people answer that question by naming a bigger savings number. They say they would invest earlier, save more, work longer, or take fewer vacations. And maybe they would, but a lot of people would also say this if they were being honest. I wish I had understood income sooner. I wish I had planned with my spouse more clearly. I wish I had stopped comparing myself to people with different lives. Comparison is one of the most expensive habits in retirement planning. It steals clarity. It replaces your real situation with somebody else's highlight reel. It makes the teacher feel behind the executive, the nurse feel behind the business owner, the careful saver feel behind the lucky investor. But your retirement is not graded on somebody else's curve. Here's the thing. A person with less money and more certainty may be in a stronger position than a person with more money and more fragility. And fragility can hide inside beautiful account balances. High spending, high anxiety, no pension, no plan for widowhood, no room to cut back, heavy dependence on market withdrawals. Those risks matter. So what should you do with all of this? Start simple. First, write down your actual monthly needs. Not your fantasy needs, not your fear-based guesses, your real core expenses: housing, food, utilities, insurance, healthcare, transportation, taxes, and the basics of how you live. Second, list your guaranteed income sources and when they start. Social Security, pension, annuity if you have one, part-time work if it is truly dependable. Do not just admire these numbers. Line them up against your core expenses and see how much of your life is already covered. Third, test your survivor plan. If you are married, Run the numbers for the day. One of you is gone. Painful? Yes. Necessary? Absolutely. Which income disappears? Which stays? What expenses remain? What decisions need to be made now while both of you can think clearly together? Fourth, stress test your savings for bad timing, not just average timing. Ask what happens if the market drops early in retirement. How much spending could you reduce for a year or two? Which expenses are optional? Which withdrawals could wait? Flexibility is not weakness. It is protection. Fifth, stop worshiping the giant target number without context. $1 million with no plan can create fear. A smaller number sitting on top of strong guaranteed income can create freedom. Always bring the number back to the life. Always. I want to know, have you ever compared your retirement plan to someone else's and felt behind? That feeling isn't always accurate. Maybe that is the biggest message in this whole conversation. Feeling behind and being behind are not always the same thing. The market can make you feel poor on a red day. A flashy headline can make you feel unprepared over breakfast. A friend with a bigger account can make you doubt everything by lunch. But feelings are not full analysis. Real analysis asks better questions. How stable is your income? How low are your fixed costs? How adaptable is your spending? How protected is your spouse? How much pressure is on your portfolio? How much of your future depends on things going perfectly? Those questions reveal strength that balanced snapshots cannot. And if you discover you are stronger than you thought, do not brush past that. Receive it. Let it change the way you carry yourself. Let it remove some of the invisible weight. Let it soften the fear that retirement has to be either luxury or disaster. For most people, the truth is more ordinary and more hopeful than that. Retirement is a life stage, not a math stunt. It is mornings, routines, errands, laughter, paperwork, coffee, family, doctor visits, small pleasures, and the quiet dignity of not being financially cornered. When you remember that, you start planning for a life instead of a number, and that is when better decisions usually begin. You don't need perfection to have a successful retirement. You need clarity. Clarity about what matters. Clarity about what is covered. Clarity about which risks are real and which fears are inherited from headlines. Clarity about the difference between a big balance and a strong plan. Clarity about whether your retirement can support your life, not somebody else's idea of what retirement should look like. So if you are one of these 5 retirees, the one with guaranteed income, the one with low fixed costs, the one who delayed benefits wisely, the one with an undervalued pension, or the one with flexible spending and a realistic plan, you may be richer than you think. Not in the flashy way, in the useful way, in the sleep-at-night way. Think about this. There are people with millions of dollars who don't feel secure, and there are people with modest savings who sleep soundly every night. The difference isn't the number. The difference is understanding. Understanding your income, understanding your expenses, understanding what actually matters. That's the difference between stress and peace. Before you go, if this helped you see your retirement differently, subscribe. There's more where this came from.